The year was 586 BC. Jerusalem stood as a fractured city, its people weary, its king powerless, and its walls surrounded by one of the greatest empires of the ancient world. For months, Babylonian troops under King Nebuchadnezzar II had tightened their grip. Food ran out. Disease spread. Parents whispered prayers over hungry children. The once proud city of David was breaking from within. When the Babylonian army finally breached the walls, chaos exploded. Soldiers poured through the gates, armored and merciless. Streets that once echoed with the sound of markets and festivals now rang with screams and the clash of weapons. Fire spread house to house. The city's last defenses collapsed. But the true target was not the homes of ordinary people. Nebuchadnezzar's eyes were fixed on the very heart of Jewish identity, the Temple of Solomon. This was no ordinary building. Constructed nearly 400 years earlier, it was a masterpiece of devotion. Cedar beams from Lebanon, walls overlaid with pure gold, sacred furnishings crafted with divine instruction, it was said to be the dwelling place of God on earth. To the Israelites, the temple wasn't just stone and timber. It was the center of their covenant, the meeting place of heaven and earth. As Babylonian soldiers stormed the temple courts, panic spread among the priests. The sacred vessels were seized one by one. The golden lampstands, the bowls and censers, the altar utensils. Everything God had commanded Moses to make, everything consecrated for worship, was stripped away as loot for Babylon's treasury. Then came the greatest loss of all. The Ark of the Covenant, that mysterious chest which had once carried the tablets of the law and symbolized God's presence, disappeared from history. No scroll records its capture, no chronicle tells its fate. Did Babylon carry it off? Was it hidden by priests before the siege? Or did it vanish by divine intervention? To this day, the question remains one of the most haunting mysteries of antiquity. Once the treasures were taken, the soldiers set fire to the temple itself. Flames devoured the cedar panels. Black smoke poured into the sky, and molten gold dripped from the walls. The sacred house of worship, where generations had gathered to celebrate Passover and the festivals of the Lord, collapsed into ash and rubble. Jerusalem was gutted, its palaces and homes destroyed, its walls dismantled stone by stone under Babylonian command. Survivors were bound in chains, dragged from their land, and forced into a brutal march of exile across hundreds of miles toward Babylon. The city that had once been a beacon of faith was silenced, left in ruins. For the people of Judah, this was more than defeat in war. This was a spiritual catastrophe. How could God allow his house to be destroyed? Had he abandoned his people? The Psalms written during this time echo their despair. By the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. And yet, even in this darkest hour, their faith did not vanish. Prophets had warned this would come. Jeremiah had spoken of fire and exile. Ezekiel, already among the captives, had visions reminding them that God's presence was not confined to Jerusalem's stones. The temple was gone, but God had not disappeared. Life in Babylon forced the people of Judah to reimagine their faith. They no longer had sacrifices at the altar, but they held fast to prayer, study, and the reading of God's Word. Out of their loss, the foundations of the synagogue were born. The scriptures were gathered, copied, and preserved. In exile, their faith became portable, no longer tied to one building, but carried within their hearts and communities. Nebuchadnezzar, in his pride, may have believed he had crushed the God of Israel. After all, he had destroyed his temple and enslaved his people. But history tells a different story. Empires rise and fall. Babylon itself would one day crumble, but the faith of Israel endured. In fact, it grew stronger. Out of the ashes of Jerusalem came a renewed identity, one that would carry the Jewish people through centuries of hardship and scattering across the world. The destruction of Solomon's temple marked the beginning of the Babylonian captivity, a 70-year exile that reshaped the future of Judaism. It was a season of grief, but also a crucible of transformation. They learned that God was not bound to a single place. His covenant was bigger than walls and gold. When the exile finally ended and the people returned, they would rebuild a temple. Yet the memory of what was lost, the glory of Solomon's house, the Ark of the Covenant, the treasures that once filled the sanctuary, would forever remind them of the cost of turning from God's ways. And so, the story of Nebuchadnezzar and the fall of Solomon's temple is not just a tale of destruction, it is a turning point, a moment when faith was tested in fire and, against all odds, survived. The city was reduced to rubble, the temple burned to ash, but the God of Israel remained. Through suffering and exile, the Jewish people discovered a truth that outlived Babylon. No army, no empire, no king can erase the presence of the living God. As the dust settled over Jerusalem and the flames of Solomon's temple faded into memory, one truth remained. Even the mightiest empires cannot erase faith, hope, or history. From the ashes of destruction, a people endured, rebuilt, and carried their story forward. A story that still inspires awe and reflection today. Nebuchadnezzar may have thought he had conquered God's house, but history shows us that true power belongs to perseverance, faith, and the lessons we carry through time. The fall of the temple was not the end. It was a turning point, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, hope can survive. If you found this story as gripping as it is inspiring, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who love biblical history, mysteries, and epic stories from the past. Your support helps us bring more incredible stories like this to life. And remember, biblical history is full of lessons waiting to be discovered. So stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring.